Welcome to another episode of B&B Financially Free. I could not be more excited to have JR and Phil in the house with us. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Look at them. It's perfectly in sync already.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how we know you guys and what you guys do in the space. So, JR, you and I met through a mutual friend a couple years ago, and we got to work together in purchasing your first short-term rental here in Colorado after you fired your realtor. And then I actually don't know how you two know each other, you and Phil.
So the house that you sold him, Marigold, he was posting it all over Instagram. I was actually one of his students in his old program, and I started getting into Airbnb, and he so happens to start getting into Airbnb. And I messaged him. I was like, hey, I have this property that I'm going to do arbitrage on. Can you take a look at it? And he messaged me back. He was like, this is in a zoned and illegal area. Come over to my place that I'm setting up right now, and we'll talk about it and show you. So I go over to the property, meet him for the second time. And I'm like, this guy's a pretty cool guy. Like, let me help him set up. He's like trying to stick, this guy right here, he's trying to set peel and stick wallpaper all over the wall. And me and my girlfriend come over and we're like, all right, let's just start helping. So we take off our jackets, we start helping, we set up the whole property up, and then towards the end of the night, we were watching Squid Games, and we kind of just started talking about our properties, and then from there it kind of sparked everything. Like, we shared the same interest. He connected me with you guys to purchase my first property as well, and then it kind of just started from there.
Cool. I want to tell everybody a little bit more about what you guys do now, because you've built an incredible company really quickly.
Yeah.
So not only are you guys short-term rental investors, but you've greatly increased your earned income through building a company that specializes in arbitrage.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your company. What's it called? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so our company basically specializes in helping investors or beginning investors get an Airbnb arbitrage properties. And the main reasons why someone is attracted to this, because it's probably half the cost to get a arbitrage property than it is to purchase. You don't have to go through crazy loans. You just pay the rent, furnish it, and put it on Airbnb. So we help our clients find the property, locate it, run the comps, design it as well. And we essentially made it to a turnkey Airbnb property for our investors. We get our clients from TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and just from social media.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that this is, kind of a big deal these days. Yeah. You guys are growing really fast. How many customers do you guys think that you're helping every year?
I think we're about to cross 500 active, and we probably have like another 200 that's no longer active. So we should probably, towards the end of the year, probably hit 1,000 members inside of our community.
That is incredible. Yeah. So something that we wanted to focus on this podcast is, not only purchasing short-term rentals and building wealth that way, but also increasing your ordinary income. And I know that that's something that you guys very much have been working towards for the last couple of years. So I kind of want to hear from both of you, maybe starting with JR, how did you become an entrepreneur? When did you start pursuing building wealth? And then how has that led you into your investments?
Yeah, so I grew up, super poor. Mom was a waitress, like you saw in the video. And it's funny because I would get comments that's like, yeah, right, he got all his money from his parents. So that's why in that video,
you just give off that air of trust fund baby.
That's why in that video I was like, let's call her on the spot and ask her what she did for a living. So yeah, she was a waitress. And then at 16, 17, I just knew that we had this career day, and this guy came in and he showed us all these careers on a spreadsheet, and then the degree required, and then how much they made. So I went to the how much they made column, went all the way down, and I found 3 that made 6 figures, and it was doctor, lawyer, engineer. And my GPA in high school was 2.4. So I was like, that sucks. And also I didn't like the idea of having to wait 4 years to make money. When you're 16, that's a large chunk of your life. It feels like. So
you're okay with the idea of wound care though in general.
So I started a tax business when I was 18, and I seller financed the business. I bought it off a guy. I had $3,000 to my name, and I ended up enrolling in college, taking out a student loan, and then I never went to class, and I used that to pay this dude. And
wait.
There's got to be some kind of college fraud.
Wait.
no,
So
because
you
they said
took out a student loan for college, and then you use that
Yeah.
to.
Fund-
That's creative financing.
I paid it. Yeah, I paid it back. I paid it back. Most people listening probably haven't paid their shit back yet. So, yeah, they hit me up and they were like, not only do you owe all this, but you owe more because you never showed up.
Stop. How much more?
It was like $3,000. Like I paid it off like the next year.
Like, would you advise other people to?
No, I mean, but I did what I had to do.
That's all
And
good,
I'm sure statute of limitation has been 10 plus years. So yeah, then I bought a tax office, 18, no business experience, but I just knew like I was going to figure it out. And I grew that to 53 employees, 3 locations by the time I was 21. And I realized like I realized that all business opportunities weren't created equal. Mm-hmm. And I was in a pretty shitty like opportunity vehicle. So I ended up selling those. I moved, opened a new one, and then I sold that, and then I got into digital marketing. And then that's how that kind of led eventually into real estate.
Wow. That is really, really cool. And actually, you reminded me of this a couple years ago. You were like, you and I have like had correspondence like on Facebook Messenger through digital marketing because you were doing so many different things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And like I missed the message. And we could have been millionaires way sooner if we had only knew then. Phil, I'd love to hear more about how you started building wealth through entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so my story is a little bit different than JR's. I actually went to college, and I went to college on a full ride scholarship for football. Decided that my senior year, well, first off, COVID happened for 2 years, so we lost 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. So my coach said, hey, we need to have a meeting because your senior season is coming up. And I was like, okay. He was like, yeah, so it looks like you're going to have to enroll into a master's program. For people that know me, I'm not a big fan of school. I was only there to play football. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to have to stay into school for another 2 years. And basically, I wouldn't graduate until now, essentially. So right now is August. So I wouldn't graduate until next year, May, which I'd be 25 by then. And I was like, there's just no...
Sorry, wait, how old are you?
I'm 24. Okay. So I'd be 25 by
how
the time...
How old are you?
29.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
old guy over here. I partnered with an older person too.
Yes.
What's the difference?
I am also old. I am 36.
31.
5 years. Close to 5 years.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I was like, there's no way I'm staying here to 25. At that time, I had a marketing agency, which I got the consulting from JR and his program at that time. And then from there, I was like, I'm building a successful business already. I don't want to stay here for another 2-3 years. So I think it's time for me to just, part ways and leave. And my coaches were supportive. My teammates were supportive as well. And a week later, I told my girlfriend, hey, we're going to pick up and leave from New Hampshire and move all the way to Denver. And it happened in pretty much in a week. Did that, met JR, kind of dissolved my marketing agency a little bit and starting getting into Airbnb. And the question popped up is like, how do we help investors or, beginner investors get an Airbnb arbitrage property like this without having to go through the mistakes we go through? Mm-hmm. So that's how we decided to partner together after he said no for like 3 times. After I told him, I asked him 3 times, he said no. And I was like, hey.
Wait. Why did you tell Phil no?
The first time he asked, I was like, I don't know. I had just finished being an internet guru, and I was like, I don't really want to be another guru again. Mm-hmm. And then the second time, I don't know, I was doing a different business and I was trying to stay focused. But then what changed my mind was when he's like, I got 200 emails off TikTok for
200 leads for $2 a pop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Off of TikTok. And he was like,
no, wasn't it? You spent $200.
Spent $200
and got 100 or 200.
Yeah, 100 leads. So basically $200.
Yeah, but so I was like, okay, like I was kind of telling him what I would do, and then I was like, damn, this could actually work like really well.
Yeah, he was like, I could find something to sell 100 people.
Yeah.
And then we decided to partner together, and I was like, okay, it was actually during the time where Asians celebrate this thing called Chinese New Year's or like Lunar New Year's. I was like, hey, since we're going into partnership together, I'm gonna need you to be the first person. Technically, at midnight of Lunar New Year's, you have to have someone that seems successful and healthy come in and bring that same energy for the new Lunar New Year. And I was like, hey, I choose you. Come in, walk into my house at midnight, and we'll light up incense, and we're gonna go into partnership. And it was like 12:05, and I'm like, where is this guy at? Like,
no, did that ruin your
No, I didn't
New
ruin it.
Year?
I didn't ruin it. He's like, I'm like, where's this guy at? And he's like, yeah, so do I just like stand outside? He calls me. He's like, do I just stay in the parking lot, stand outside the door? What do I do? I'm like, bro, come in. So he comes in, we light up the incense, and then from there, everything started just blowing up. Next month one, we did like $50,000 cash collected. Month 2, we did about like 70. And then I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we hit 100K before your birthday? And before his birthday, we hit 100K, and then had our biggest month, like 6 months later, doing about 300,000 in revenue that month. And then now our company does about, 4 to 5 million a year. So that's kind of kept that tradition too. He did the same thing on Lunar New Year's, walked into my house, I walked into his house. And we're just going to keep doing that.
So that is the key. Yeah.
You guys gotta do that in my house right now.
Yeah. Like, do you even celebrate Lunar New Year?
I do.
I don't think we've ever talked about it.
Are you superstitious?
Not really.
I'm pretty superstitious. We had a money tree in our office one time, and it started dying, and we went dry on sales.
Ours is dying right now.
I told you to get it out.
I know. I got to get rid of it.
We went dry on sales for like 2 weeks because we had a dead money tree in our office.
But it's also like, isn't it bad luck to throw them away too?
I didn't throw them
so
away. I left
we moved
it out.
Yeah, we moved it into like the common area to make it look like it was like the office's plant.
And then somebody picked it up, and it's gone now. And
oh man, we own this whole house.
Will you remove our money tree today?
I'm not touching that shit. Greg can take it with him.
So, all right. So, like, how long have you run this business?
We're going on 2 years now.
Okay,
actually, I think so. It would be a year and 6 months.
Okay, so a year and a half. You've grown from basically essentially zero to $4 to $5 million in revenue.
Yeah.
What are like some key takeaways? Like, what did you guys do to grow so quickly? And like, who did you have to hire? And like, what are some tips for some of these like entrepreneurs out there to like grow your business the way that you guys have?
I'll let you start off. Start off with the sales.
Yeah, our first hire was a sales guy. Okay. So literally, this was the first like 3 days in business. Go to his apartment. We film like all the like intro videos, the video sales letter. I build out like the landing pages, the thank you page, maybe a couple of emails. We build out the pitch deck, and then we hire a sales guy. This was like in 1 day. Most people, it would take them like 6 months. Mm-hmm. But we were like, we know it's going to change anyways. So it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So we hired the sales guy. We threw him on some calls. We start running the TikTok ads. I think we set that up the first day, filmed those 2. And our backgrounds were digital marketing. So we had, although this journey has gone from, 0 to 5 million in a year and a half, I had like 7 years of digital marketing experience of trying to launch offers, failing, building landing pages. I was one of the first. I was on ClickFunnels when they had like 10,000 users.
Wow.
So
it's crazy when people are like, yeah, you guys did that so fast. To us, it doesn't feel like it was fast because of all the years of developing all the skill sets to be able to launch something like this. Like a lot of people will try to launch our offer and they'll run into a bunch of hurdles or obstacles, and from there they'll just quit.
I mean, you guys have a ton of copycats.
Yeah.
Like all the time, I'm seeing them pop up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But we were the first.
I know. I know. And I'm like super protective of it. I'm always like sending them to JR. I'm like, you either need to buy this company or you need to tell them to stop.
Or just report their ad. So,
okay.
So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was we started to focus on our offer. So I looked at our offer and it was very similar to what other people were selling in the market. So we got the feedback from the sales calls, and it's like, oh, well, I'm looking at this program and your program, or I'm looking at this program, your program. And when I look at the offering, like I could say we're better, the coaching's better, I care more, but anything that ends in ER is going to be very difficult to compete on. Mm-hmm. So we had to come up with something different. So I went back through and I read Hermosi's $100 million offers, went back through it, And there's this exercise where you write down everything that you could possibly do for someone, no matter how unrealistic it is. So for you guys, it'd be like, well, I can sell them a house. Like, okay, how many other agents can sell them a house? Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, what else could we do? Well, what if we packaged a course that taught them Airbnb? Mm-hmm. And what if we offered support after they got Airbnb in the form of a monthly strategy Zoom call? Mm-hmm. And what if we set up the Airbnb for them? So this was like how it went. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is unrealistic, that's unrealistic. And it's funny because some of the things that I deemed unrealistic at the time, we do now. Like one of them was we fly out and design the Airbnb, and I'm like, that logistically that just seems very difficult.
It's our best product now.
And now, more than half our revenue or half our revenue comes from interior design.
I wanted to talk about that. So you have like the acquisition side where you identify a short-term rental lease, and then you also have the design company, and you would say that they're growing at similar paces.
Yeah. So at the time, we started with, well, what if we could negotiate the lease with the landlord? And I looked at the feedback from the sales calls, and it seemed like that was the thing that people dreaded doing themselves the most. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, what if I could take the hardest part of the process and put that into our offer and do that for them? And that I had a bunch of other different offers. Like I was brainstorming a lot. I was like, well, what if we could find a way to set up someone's property for them for free, and then we just take the revenue for the first 2 or 3 months. That was one of the initial
everybody would have ran away though.
Except for you spend probably way too much towards your
exactly right.
8 months.
But I was like, I remember seriously sitting down for like an hour and running a bunch of numbers and being like, how could I make this work? Mm-hmm. So ultimately, our offer came from that. And then over time, so the offer was really what took off. The first day we launched the offer, I just threw it out there to my Instagram, and we got like 20 grand in sales in like 3 or 4. The first guy, I remember the first guy, I pitched him. He calls me back 5 minutes later and closes. Yeah. And then pitched another guy that same day, and he ended up paying.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys are wondering, what were we doing for fulfillment? Number one, I think we enrolled like our first 10 people, and we were like, oh shit, we have like 80 grand in sales and we have no idea how to fulfill this. So we hire 2 acquisition managers, one of them my girlfriend and her best friend, and we're like, guys, meet at the house, 9 a.m., we need to talk. We talk, we're like, hey, you guys need to go out in person and I'll go on Facebook Marketplace, go on Zillow, look at all these properties for rent, and you guys need to go out there and pitch these landlords on arbitrage. So they leave at like 9 a.m. to go on all these tours. It's like nighttime, and me and Jay are like, when are they gonna get back? Like, what happened? They're not even updating us. They get back and they're like, all right, here's the deal. Here's all the landlords that said no, and here's all the landlords that said yes. And we're like, okay, we have something here. Like, we have something here. But then we realized that enrolling a bunch of clients and putting them all in Colorado, where we're gonna run into some scalability issues, which is why we started hiring different acquisition managers out of state. They didn't need to go in person. We started negotiating over the phone, and kind of just started our fulfillment process from there. I think also the biggest takeaway from all this as well is that we wouldn't have scaled as fast if day one, me and JR didn't agree, hey, you're going to handle 100% on this half of the business, and I'm going to handle 100% on this half of the business. And we kind of just split up roles. So from that day, we decided that I was going to handle sales. I was going to help out with marketing. JR was going to handle fulfillment, also help out with marketing. And we kind of just stayed on our lanes and focused 100% of our energy into that section of the business.
I love that you guys did that. And I think, we're in 2 partnerships right now. And that's like extremely to navigate for people, like both from like the business perspective and from the real estate perspective. So it's cool that you guys have figured that out. Okay. So obviously you guys do arbitrage. You help other people do arbitrage, but you're also into short-term rental investing. Talk to me about like the difference in the two, and like when it makes more sense to do an arbitrage and when it makes more sense to purchase a short-term rental.
Yeah, I think for arbitrage, it's a great way to get your feet wet in real estate. So most of the clients that we deal with either have no investments at all, or maybe 1 to 2 properties, and maybe those properties are not performing well for them. So they're looking at alternative investments to build their portfolio. So we always tell them, like, arbitrage is not your end goal. Like, your end goal should be purchasing properties and, getting the equity and being able to actually own it. But not a lot of people understand business. Not a lot of people understand how to be a good landlord. Not a lot of people have the capital to purchase a property like that. And not a lot of people can actually qualify, because we deal with a lot of self-employed people as well, and a lot of different investors that don't have this, secure W-2 income. So this is a great route for them to acquire a property in like less than 30 days, right? So
Right. Yeah, and they don't have to take the risk of the unknown with repairs.
Yeah.
All of my first few properties, like when you don't know anything about construction or homes, the inspection report is like Greek to you. Like you don't know what's going to give out soon. So it's a way to kind of get in the game more predictably. And some people are scared of interest rates. I'm not, but that's one thing that pushes people towards us overbuying as well.
We used to until Peter had a meeting with us.
Yeah. Tell us, Peter, about that meeting.
So I guess like these guys, we had lunch. These guys were making quite a bit of money. Like this was like probably a year into their business, and I mean, I'm going to tell it to you straight. Like these guys had poor mindsets. Okay, like they were worried that like people were coming after them. They were worried that like it was all just going to go away, like with a puff of smoke, and that everything that they were building was just going to like disappear.
Mind you, we were on this like high where everything was going well. We're like, okay, we need to buy some properties. We're like, Peter, let's have a meeting. Interest rates are crazy. We don't know about this. I don't think we've had a person in a long time sit us down and tell us, you guys are thinking like brokies right now. and like we were kind of hit by that. We were like, that hurt.
Yeah, I think the conversation was trying to decide whether we were just going to pay taxes or buy property.
Yeah, we were going to just pay taxes.
Yeah, we were literally
these guys were just
we were ready.
What amount of taxes do you think you're going to have to pay if you didn't buy
It
property?
was going to be like 150 to 200 grand probably.
It was going to be a few $100,000 like combined, and they were just going to fork it over to Uncle Sam without putting up a fight at all.
Because I was like, Peter, I'm worried about the market. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah.
Well, the reason why we did that is because we spent 6 weeks trying to tour properties, find properties, and in that time, we see our business taking a little bit of a hit, like very, very slowly in proportion to us pulling away, trying to go find real estate deals. So we're like, we're not going to do this. We're just going to try to focus on our business, pay the taxes, focus on growing, 2Xing this business in the span of the next 6 months. And then we had a meeting with Peter, and he was
And
like,
I will say this, if we didn't have that meeting, we wouldn't have bought the property that we ended up buying. And that property in the last month did 29K.
Yeah.
And the month before that did like 28.
And how much did you buy that property for?
625 after concessions.
Do not expect these results.
Honestly, those
crazy.
bookings that we get, we're happier seeing those bookings come in than getting like a $25,000 sale from like our main business or something.
Airbnb money feels different.
Yeah,
Why is that?
Because to me, $1 of passive income equals $10 of active income.
Yeah.
Like it's in terms of like excitement, what it does for my life. There's just something about making money that you didn't have to work for that will then allow you to go out and do stupid things with that money.
Like what, JR? Like what kind of stupid things did you do?
So I just bought a Lamborghini and 2020 Huracan Evo, and I justified the purchase because of my Airbnb passive
Cash flow,
income.
yeah.
And
Sometimes JR will text me and he'll be like, Chantal, I'm buying this because I just bought 2 short-term rentals. And I just want you to know that like this investment makes sense for me because I bought 2 properties. So like just FYI, Chantal, like because I did this, it's cool that I bought the land.
Trust me, I'm the one that's like, he will text me like a full justification on like why he's gonna buy this car, and I'll literally respond, I'm like, bro, just do it. Like,
I mean,
but I do the same thing when
sense.
I got my car. They both know actually. I was texting both of them. It was a scary moment. It's like, damn, this is a lot that's gonna go out of your account at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it just keeps you motivated.
It does.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, I gotta go make this back. Like it's
yeah,
gone.
I mean, if your income ceiling is uncapped, then I think it's a good idea. But if you know you're only going to make X amount and that it's going to grow by 3% or whatever your boss decides every year, then it's probably not a good idea to buy a Lamborghini. But I'm using, like, my first video I posted with that car has 300,000 views on TikTok in like 3 days. Exactly.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I justified that purchase by, we have 3 properties under contract that are all going to be short-term rentals, and we're doing pretty
boring
good.
investment, short-term rentals, to get fun investments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So, how much are you guys projecting to be like your passive income? You know, interest rates, expenses, completely like subtract all of that stuff. How much like passive income per month are you guys expecting after you set up all of your properties right now, along with everything that you currently have?
Yeah, it depends on which month. Are you talking like summer or like
Let's say like at the average month. Average, throughout
So
the
I
year,
sat down and
divided by 12.
I'm also adding a pool to one of my properties, so I'll
Are
factor
you
that
going
in
with
as well.
mod pool?
No, I have a certified pool contractor guy who's putting like a real one in the ground.
Nice.
But after that one gets the pool, I should average 18,000 a month.
Okay.
Completely passive.
Completely passive after all mortgages, all expenses.
All mortgages, all expenses, utilities. Like I spent like 3 hours writing it down on a sheet, doing like highs, lows, best months, worst months, going back through bookings, going back through expenses to really figure it out after these properties. And I mean, in the summer months, like shit, we could be making like, I don't know, 35, 40 grand each in those months. So I think, it's been interesting because you guys see like a lot of fear in the market right now around Airbnb. But now, to me, I always can, when I'm acting like how Peter described that day, like a brokey, I always have like a moment of self-reflection, and I'm like, is this how the person that you would want to behave? Is this how they would behave? So, and the answer is no. So that's why I don't get scared of high interest rates. I don't get scared when interest rates are rock bottom and prices are going through the roof, because I'm like, the real estate investor that I would want to be can find a deal in any market.
I so agree with that. And all of this comes down to your identity, right? And I was just reading High Performance Habits, and there was the statement where they were saying, like, let's say that you're in a break room and someone asks you, hey, do you want a cigarette? And you're like, no, I'm trying to quit. Well, all of a sudden you're identifying yourself as like someone who is a smoker that's trying to quit, instead of responding and saying, I don't smoke. And so like, if your identity is someone as I am a real estate investor, I can find a deal in any market, you're going to make far different actions than you would if you identified as, someone who has a couple of Airbnbs.
Yeah. And some of the fun in real estate that I've learned is your strategy has to pivot every few years.
Yep.
Like you guys used to do foreclosures.
Yep.
Same with me investing. I started on long-term rentals, and then I did a short-term rental. And then I was like, okay, this area of short-term rentals works best for me in the type of property, but also the area. Like I get people send me stuff all the time. They're like, this is in the mountains. This is in this. And I ask like one or two questions because I'm always curious. And then I'm like, you don't know anything about this, but you know this over here really, really well. Like I could tell you everything about Arvada, like every street, every neighborhood. I've looked at every property that's on the market right now between $700,000 and $1 million. I've looked at in Arvada. Like, when you open up Zillow and it shows you like faded, the ones you've looked at, and it's like all of them are faded for me. There's like one or two that aren't.
No, exactly.
So we know what you do in your spare time.
Yeah, I look at properties every day. Like I look at least like 5 or 10. And when I say look, like I could just glance at it for 2 seconds.
Sure.
Or I'll look at it for like, spend 5 minutes like looking at it. So I think that I found my lane, and I just stay in my lane really well because our strategy works so well in the current market.
Right.
But that could completely change as well. And I was so afraid of that in the past, but now I'm like, a good investor is not going to have the same strategy for 30 years. Like they're going to pivot, from time to time based on market conditions.
Yeah, a good investor and a good business owner, right? Like both of those require pivoting. I very much agree with that. And I think you guys have such a commitment to be the top of your game. And something that we see a lot with short-term rental investors is they're like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to make the type of money to, really make this a worthwhile investment. And like that self-belief really does bleed into every aspect of your life, whether from an investment standpoint or a business standpoint. Talk to me about how you guys are buying properties today at high prices with high interest rates, and why are you making those decisions, and how do you think that they'll perform in comparison to
so the property Peter convinced us to buy, we had to get a 10.3% interest rate.
What?
because our business was less than a year old, and that was our main source of income. So we only qualified for like one very specific loan product.
And what type of loan product?
Bank statement loan, where they don't look at your tax returns or anything. So I was like, man, this is crazy. But if you look at the cash on cash return on that property, it's insane. Like you're not finding that anywhere. So.
And did you feel like it was just that good of a deal, or were there things that you did to make it?
Yeah, the house sat on the market for like 57 days before we offered on it. Nobody wanted it. Anybody in America could have had this property. And it had a pool that hadn't worked in like 20 years and all this stuff. But I looked at the bones and I was like, the kitchen, we probably don't need to do anything to it. So maybe some floors. It had popcorn ceiling. And really that's all we did to the inside. Floors, popcorn ceiling, vanities, and some tile in the bathrooms. And then we really focused on the design. So I think that where people go about short-term rentals wrong is it's always just like, okay, like I remember I had this mindset with you when you sold me the first one. I remember messaging you and I was like, hey, do you think I could furnish it for $5,000?
What did I say?
You were like, maybe 10.
You ended up spending like 35, right?
Well, and then he's like texting me. He's like, I'm at the at home store and I hate you. I'm at Target and this sucks. I'm at Walmart and like I can't believe you said that this was.
Well, my first property, I was thinking the same way as well. Like, how can I spend the least amount just to get this property launched? 6 months later, I redesigned it. I'm like, this doesn't cut it. Like Airbnb is evolving, designs are evolving. Like if you don't keep up, you're just going to be underwater the whole time. It's going to hurt you in the long run. We tell our clients this too all the time when they're like, okay, what's the least amount I can put? And I'm like, well, if either you spend more now or you're going to be spending it down the road, paying rent out of pocket every single month because your design sucks. Which one do you want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think another key in this is like you guys, before you had the income that you do now, you were looking at resources to be able to afford the furniture and design standpoint. And some of your clients are doing that too. And we have that as well, where our clients are taking out personal loans or HELOCs, or they're taking out a credit card with like 0% interest for the first year. So they can actually do the investment that is necessary for them to perform well. And all of this is backed by, data and proof of concept. But like, it's not just for those that have a ton of money, but it is for those who are willing to find the resources to put the investment. So it's going to be one of the top properties.
Oh, we should actually talk later, because we have a funding department that can get your clients 0% interest under a brand new LLC.
Oh, well, let's talk about this.
One thing I'll say on that is, I don't think I ever told you this, but I used pretty much all of my money on the first two properties that we did. I literally I probably had like less than 10 grand left by the time I had done that one and the second one right after that.
I think you had like 100 and then went down to 10, right?
Yeah. And I had no income at the time. Like outside of, I was like, this is gonna, like I had shut down my last business and I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do next. And I was like, while I figure that out, I need a source of steady income, which is why I did Airbnb. So I put my back against the wall and I was like, I'm gonna make this work. Like I did the 90s theme as my first property, which was crazy.
Yeah.
And
it was, because not a lot of people were doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I didn't know it would work, but I was like, I'm gonna give 100%.
Yeah.
And if I fail, it's not because I didn't try. And I'm always okay with that. Like I can always live with like, okay, you gave it 100%, but if I fail and I gave it like 65%, 70%, I'm gonna feel like an idiot. So I think that when I see people go into short-term rentals, it's always like, what's the least amount of effort or money or whatever I can put? Now we're always like, what's the most that we can put into this? Like the last house, it has 2 murals and it has a speakeasy downstairs and it has a gallery wall and it has a putt-putt and all these things, because we just saw the opportunities to do that. And I pushed that even further, on that project, and I plan to on these as well.
Yeah, I like that mindset.
Yeah, and a lot of people they treat Airbnb as like a passive side hustle.
Right.
And they have to get out that mindset, because it's not a passive side hustle. It's a business that you should actually care about and treat it like a business that you want to grow and scale. Like some people just don't want to put their backs against the wall. Like I remember Jay and I are talking about that pool house that Peter talked us into 10.3%, and just were like, what if this doesn't work? Like, we're going to be coughing up this mortgage every single month. And we're like, worst case, we midterm rent it. If that doesn't work, we find a tenant to move in there and we cover $1,000 a month or something. Or last resort, we give up our apartments. We both move in here. You and your girlfriend take a room. Me and my girlfriend take a room, and then we rent out the other 2 rooms to random people. And so, like, we're willing to go to that extent to make this business successful. And not a lot of people will want to do that.
Yeah. And then also, like, in that same way, like, you were going to cough up $150,000 in taxes if you did not do that bonus depreciation study. And so how many months would it take you to lose money as a short-term rental before you would hit the $150K loss that you were guaranteed?
Like 2 or 3 years.
Plus, you're not really like you're still getting principal pay down and appreciation and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think people forget that. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I love that you guys are going for it both in your businesses as well as your short-term rental business. We couldn't agree more that, like, short-term rentals are you starting your own little business. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, like, we've talked about this, like, it's not rocket science. Like, anybody can be good at this, but you do have to have a commitment to be willing to compete with the top properties in your area. Because those mediocre middle ones are just not cutting it in today's market.
Yeah, ours are passive. Like, I don't do anything day to day for the properties. It's passive, but I still pay very close attention. And that's where I think people go wrong is they go passive and they don't pay attention. So I go to the properties and I test out all the light bulbs. I walk the place. I look for garbage. I was there yesterday. And I just look around and then I look at the numbers and I look at the pricing and stuff like that every once in a while, and I make sure that it can remain passive for me.
Yeah, especially after the big upfront investment from, like, a time aspect and a financial aspect. Cool. Well, thank you guys for coming on today. How can people find you?
They can follow me on IG at It's Philip Tran, ITS Philip Tran.
At JR Rivas.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you guys for coming. And if you have any questions on arbitrage, definitely reach out to them. What is your company name? I don't think we mentioned
B&B
that.
Leverage. You can find us on www.bnbleverage.com.
All right. Thank you.